Hello and welcome back. I'm Rachel.
I'm Hannah.
And this is the You Talkin' to Me podcast. Today we will be reviewing the second episode of the show The Wilds. Hannah, what's the recap?
Well, first, the reason why we're doing the second episode is because the second episode focuses on a girl named Rachel. And the theme, if you remember last week, we watched a show called Hannah, and we decided to focus on a show where the focus was on a girl named Rachel for this week. So The Wilds episode 2 focused on Rachel and her backstory. Rachel has a twin sister named Nora who has always been the smart one. Rachel is the athletic one. We see how Rachel became the athlete she is today and also what begins to unfold on day 2 of being stranded on an island. Now you might be like, hello, excuse me, what do you mean stranded on an island? So before we get more into it, I can also give a backstory. I've watched this whole series, which currently there's one season. They just finished filming season 2. In episode 1, it follows the life of Leah, who's kind of like, it goes into the stories of everyone throughout each episode, but I still kind of feel like the main focus is on Leah, or she's involved in some way. All the girls are involved in some way. I say all the girls. There's Rachel, Nora, Tony, Shelby, Leah, Dot, Fatten, Martha, and in the beginning, the first episode, there's a girl named Jeanette. Rachel maybe is wondering what was happening because there's this scene where they're saying, oh, Jeanette had this phone. Well, Jeanette dies because these girls all come to this airplane. It's like a private plane, and they're all supposedly going on this trip to like a getaway and a retreat type thing where you're supposed to build relationships with other women and like-minded individuals just to like make friends and maybe discover more who you are. It's on an island somewhere, and they're supposed to have like all these fancy things, and they all get cake. I just remember they all eat cake, which will play a part in the future. So, they all get cake, and then the airplane goes down. They crash. They realize that they are now on an island somewhere, a deserted island. And none of them can really remember how they got there. They don't know how they got onto the island or the plane crashing. They remember going down and then nothing after that until they get on the island. And like I said, Jeanette dies. She got some internal bleeding that happened when she crashed, presumably. And then, she dies, and they had buried her. But then Leah finds this phone one night because it was ringing, and she's like, why did she have this phone? Why didn't she tell anyone? Like, why couldn't we call someone on this phone? Like, we're stranded on this island. And then it kind of is just, the whole story of them getting to this island. And so, yes, now we are on day 2 of these 8 women, if you don't count the person who died, on the island. And what did you think of the episode starting where it did? Was it confusing because you didn't have the episode before?
Well, so what I did is I watched about 5 to 10 minutes of the first episode because I wasn't going to have time to watch all of both. I would have if I could have time, but I watched a little bit of it to get like the structure idea down and be like, what's kind of, how is this being told? But then I read somebody's most like accurate recap of the first episode online just so that I wasn't super behind. So I knew about the phone, I knew about the girl dying and stuff like that. I don't know as many details like them eating cake and that they don't really remember how they landed on the island. I just knew that it crashed, but it wasn't too confusing because luckily the Rachel episode is episode 2, which is great because you aren't missing too much. They're still unveiling little things that you're going to need in the future. So also the way it's told is very interesting. So it has what I'm assuming is the present, which is Rachel being interrogated by these people, which I feel like they did that to Leah. She was being interrogated as well. I feel like that's probably they're interrogating all of the girls at some point, or at least most of them. So that's the present. Then it like goes to the past, which is them on the island, which feels like the present as well because it's like day 1, day 2, day 3 or whatever, which is very interesting. And that's playing out in real time or whatever. And then you get even past of these people's backstories of why they are the way they are, why maybe they were going on this retreat or why they were told they needed to or whatever. And I knew from the beginning of the first episode that all of these women are like lost in some way. I feel like they're either hate their normal life, they hate life in general, they don't know what they're doing, like what their purpose is, etc. Like they have some sort of like issue that someone or themselves like recommended they should go on this retreat or something. Is kind of how I was piecing it together. Is they all have a problem that they want solved.
Yeah, it was a good point to make that there's the present, what a scene feels like the present, and then the past. And the past can be all different times from the past. And on this episode, like we've already stated, it focuses on Rachel, and we need to make sure that we have a trigger warning. We will be talking about an eating disorder. If that sort of language will affect you in some sort of way, please don't listen to this episode and join us again next week. If you feel that you can handle talk around an eating disorder, stay on listening. But I already mentioned that Rachel is an athlete. Her, I don't know where I was going with that sentence, but the sport that Rachel does is diving. And it's funny that the way that this timing worked out, the Olympics were just happening, and diving's one of those sports. And then I've recently been watching Tom Daly on YouTube. He has a YouTube channel and he's a diver. So I was like, oh, this is funny that these are tying together now. But Rachel is a diver, and we kind of see some of the training that she's doing and how she pushes herself to be this athlete. And, a lot of times I feel like people might not realize how much work goes into being an athlete, because you see this person perform for diving, for example. You see someone do like, I don't know, 5 dives in a few minutes and you think, okay, yeah, like that's all they do. But think about all the training hours that go into being that athlete. It's kind of wild to
And
think
they make
about.
it look so easy. Even if they do like the hardest thing, it looks so simple because of how much work is behind that dive. Like Hannah said, it might take 10 seconds per dive and there's a couple minutes in between or whatever, but that's like years of training to get there. It's crazy.
Like I said, we get to see Rachel being this really good diver, and then all of a sudden we realize that Rachel has been told that she can't dive anymore because she doesn't have the body type to be a diver by her coach. And her coach is like, there's nothing against you. Like, you're a beautiful woman. But these divers, they need to be flat chested. They need to be basically stick thin to move through the air the way that they need to move through the air. And you don't have that body anymore. And this is when Rachel starts to develop an eating disorder. She starts overworking her body, under fueling, and she also starts to purge. And we see how that is. It's kind of like a sequence of events of like maybe she's skipping food, she's overworking out, she's purging. And we see this playing out, and it's not easy to watch. It was, how did you feel watching whenever those scenes were happening?
Well, I just like my heart like hurt, you know, being told that you don't have the body type for something is like a personal attack. Not, I mean, the coach wasn't trying to be mean or anything, but it's like I can't at this point when I'm under 18, obviously, like I can't change my breast size. I can't, deplete my muscles in a way that's healthy, that like still gives me the strength and like whatnot to perform at this high level. Because it kind of sounded like she was on track for like nationals. I think she was on the nationals team, but like she wasn't going to go very far, or was like an alternate or something like that. She technically said, I'm not going to cut you, but like this year I'm not taking you off the nationals team, but you're not gonna make it, and showed a picture of her. She's much taller. She's literally full figured. She's got hips. You can't get rid of hips. You could lose literally all your weight. Your bones are still gonna be there, like just crap like that just sucks. And, I was someone who like blossomed early, like I went through puberty between like fourth and fifth grade and things like that. Like I know like what that's like. Luckily I joined cross country, so I was a cross country runner. Luckily I joined that after I had already gone through puberty, because you see it like all these really young runners who are like seventh and eighth graders, for girls, like they're super good usually. Like they're sometimes better than the seniors at cross country. And then they'll hit puberty, and if you don't run through your body's changes, you get so injured because your body doesn't know how to move with like extra weight on it, or like whatever's going on, your body just moves differently. And if you don't run through it and try like while your body's changing, it can really F you up. And I've seen a lot of people like their running careers end because of just like being a woman, and it really sucks. And so it was like heartbreaking to see just that part happen to Rachel. And then yeah, you see her like eating one pea at a time, like in a bra and underwear, like staring at herself in the mirror. These are all just quick snippets, but like they put in the thought, because these are like real things that people do, and it's real stuff that like acting agents and stuff like that tell people, their clients who they think need to lose weight, to do that. Jennifer Lawrence was told to eat in front of a mirror because it'll make you eat less. And I'm like, that's disgusting. Like you should eat as much as your body needs, as much as you want to put in your body. And you shouldn't have to like force yourself to play mind tricks on yourself to eat less or lose weight. And these are unhealthy tactics. It's not portion sizing and being conscious of what you're eating. It's, oh, here's things that are going to make you feel bad whenever you eat. No, I don't want to feel crappy about myself. So it was just so sad the whole time, like watching her. And what Hannah didn't say is that her sister also is like kind of watching this happen. It's like she knows something's going on, and she's trying to get her help, because all of a sudden you just see Rachel with like a hospital band on and like coming out of the bathroom. She's at some sort of hospital rehab type situation for her eating disorder, and she's trying to convince Nora to help her get out. I'm better. Like, look, I literally went to the bathroom. They're going to check it. I didn't purge. Like, I've been doing good. And I think her sister just so badly wants to, I think she feels like she has to make it up to Rachel, because Rachel is not as smart as Nora, and they play all these word games. They play all these like brain games and with the family.
They being the family.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
The
family.
parents and children.
Yeah, and Rachel always feels left out because it just doesn't come to her as quickly. They've shown snippets of when they were like children, like before she was into diving, I'm pretty sure. And they played this game where you take a word, a longer word, and then you take all those letters and find smaller words within it. And Rachel's like trying to come up with something, and literally Nora has to whisper a word in her ear because she's struggling. And Nora's not doing it to be like, look, I'm smarter than you, I know a word that you can have. It's like, I'm trying to help you. But Rachel takes it as like a personal offense, like, I'm too stupid to come up with this. And so the athlete thing is like all she had to make her family proud. And so when she literally is about to get it taken away from her, she is then develops this eating disorder, which must boost her for a little bit, but then it's because someone reported her, I'm guessing Nora, it's about to get taken away, and now Nora feels bad and is trying to make it up for her, and she's clearly not better because we see her in the locker room like really energy depleted, about to go and perform a dive, and she like wants to eat more of this like granola bar or whatever it is, power bar, but she like doesn't because it's like triggering in her mind and stuff like that. Like she like can't get herself to do it, and it is a very tragic ending to that story. I'll let Hannah talk about that.
Well, and at the facility, when Nora's there and Rachel comes out of the bathroom, she says, "Please just help me get out of here." Or Nora says, "Is there anything I can do for you?" And she says, "Help me get out of here." And Nora says, "I'll talk to mom and dad." And I think it's this whole twin thing. I mean, Rachel says something about it too. The people who are investigating her, when you're a twin, it's different. The dynamic is just different. And I'm sure, if you're a twin with someone, it's way different than just a sibling, and then there's the competition and whatever. And I'm sure the bond is great, and I'm not saying all twins would have this like competitive dynamic, but it probably would be hard if you felt like your parents really honored and they just really found intelligence to be the most important thing, and your sister is so intelligent, and then you feel like you lack in that area, so you're like, well, what can I do to make them proud? So that is kind of like where Rachel's at. And like the Rachel on this podcast said, we see Rachel in the locker room, and yeah, she's trying to eat this granola bar, and then we watch her climb up the steps to go make a dive, and it's kind of in slow motion and like hazy, not hazy, but like twitchy almost. How would you describe that motion?
It was like warpy. I don't know. It was the camera movement or the way they edited it. It was like they cut like milliseconds off of the recording to where it like jumped a little bit in between, and it was really disorienting.
And almost laggy too. Like if someone has a bad Wi-Fi connection, how that looks kind of. So then we watch her get to the top, and then she goes to make this dive, and we hear a sound, and we hear the crowd going, and then we see Rachel in the pool with blood coming off of her head, meaning she clearly went for the dive. She must have blacked out or something, and she nailed her head on the board, which is just terrifying.
That was my
terrifying.
biggest fear watching the Olympics. Every time someone's gonna nick their head or even their foot or leg on the edge of that thing, I was literally terrified the whole time. Also, though, I know it's a show. Why did no one dive into the water immediately to go save her? Like, she was like all by herself still, kind of like floating, like she was conscious enough to like get out of the water, but there was not medics on top of her in a second. I was like, you heard that when I did. So I was a little upset about that.
Maybe they're just used to that happening sometimes. And if the person doesn't pass out, it's like you get out of the water. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, that's scary. Well, and what I heard from Tom Daly on his YouTube channel, and it could be different for a high school diver because you're diving from a lower level, but when he dives off the 9 meter or whatever the height is, you hit the water at 35 miles an hour. 35 miles an hour? Oh, no, thank you.
That's
no,
why
no.
they have those wrist braces, because you have to hit the water with a flat palm instead of like this, so that you can create a hole for your body to go through. You're supposed to go straight through it basically to create as little splash, because splash is bad when you're a diver. Anyway, but they have these wrist braces on so that they don't hurt their wrists. And so when you're going 35 miles an hour and you have to like hit the water flat, like, geez, that's not, you can't even drive that fast in some places.
I don't think I would like that. Well, first of all, I don't want to dive off of a normal diving board, so let alone 9 meters up. No, no. But yes, then she's in the water, that happens. And then it kind of, well, and this whole time it's been flashing back and forth between that past time and the past time, which seems like current time on the island. And we see on the island, so right after she develops this eating disorder, we see that Dot's taking inventory of what's on the island. She's kind of being in charge of who, or like, what do we have in the bags we have here? And then we see that Martha has a sprained ankle, and Shelby's trying to take care of Martha, and Tony is not having it. She's like, get away, she's my best friend. And then Shelby, Rachel, and Leah climb the mountain. And when Rachel's climbing up the steps to the diving board, it also flashes to Rachel climbing up the mountain, and it's that same sort of thing. So you think that something's also going to happen on this mountain when they're climbing the mountain, and nothing really does happen on the mountain. Rachel just keeps saying like, let's keep going, and Shelby's like I need a drink, and she's like, no, let's keep going, and she's like, I'm sorry, I'm not on the same level as you, like we're not on the same level as you. And Rachel's like, well, that's racist. And Shelby's like, that's not what I mean. And she's like, I'm just joking with you. She's like, I just mean that you're a world-class athlete. And Rachel's been putting up this story about the fact that she's going to, I don't remember which college, but to a
Stanford.
college for diving.
Stanford.
Stanford for diving, which she actually isn't, because she's been cut, but she hasn't told the whole family yet, or like she hasn't admitted to herself that that's not truly happening. They were trying to bring this mirror up to the top of the mountain, Shelby, Rachel, and Leah. And Rachel gets really angry at them wanting to drink water or take a break, and the mirror goes flying, and Leah dives after it, and she almost falls off the friggin' mountain. And it's just intense. Also, we see in this episode that Rachel kind of has these anger issues, and she literally spits on Jeanette, who is the girl that's dead, who's been buried. And she gets so angry that she didn't tell the rest of them about a phone, that she spits on her. And then she switches the blame to Leah, because Leah was the one who found the phone. She's like, why didn't you wake everyone up? And Leah's like, I was confused. Like, it's the middle of the night. There was a phone ringing. We're on this deserted island. Like, I didn't know what I was thinking. And Rachel's like, you're on to something. Like, so Rachel at this point kind of feels like a person who's angry at life and wants to put the blame on other people instead of taking responsibility for her life. Do you feel that way as well?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's like she's been given so much like blame, right? We've seen it, and she has been told like things are her fault. Like, or well, it isn't her fault, but she, I think, puts the blame on herself, like when she's told that, you can't be a diver anymore, blah blah blah, that stuff. That I think she needs to like put blame on other people to divert that energy or whatever. So it is a little intense and stuff. So I did actually, when you said it, notice that she has some anger issues, but I didn't really put it together. And I wonder if that the lies are also catching up with her, that she's like angry that these people have actual lives or whatever, and she thinks they're not hiding anything when she is, and all this stuff. So
When they're at the top of the mountain, we see that Rachel looks around and she realizes that there's nothing around the island. It's water. Maybe you saw another land mass, but I think it was just water, 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 water. And she's like, there's nothing around here. And then she starts freaking out at everyone, saying, does no one else want to get off this island? Does no one else have a life that they want to get back to? Like, does no one else care about their life? And what's kind of funny about that statement is Rachel cares so much about a life that's not actually true for her anymore. Like, she is holding up this facade, or whatever you want to call it, of going as a diver to Stanford, but that's not even true. And then she's like saying, well, doesn't everyone else want to get back to their life? And as we dive into the stories of everyone, we do realize like the reasons why they came to this retreat. And it's like, maybe they didn't want to get back to their life. Right now, they needed a break. And that's so for right now, for a few days, they're going to be okay with not being in their life and on this island, even though it's a scary situation. And they're like, do we have enough food? Do we have enough water? Like, are we going to get off of this island? But in that moment, it was like, I also get a break from my real life problems, which I thought was an interesting play on a story, because what we don't hear in this episode is Leah in the first episode talks about how I think she specifically talks about being a teenage girl in America is one of the hardest things you can be, because of all the pressure of others that you're getting put on yourself, the pressure you put on yourself, the way that you're supposed to look, the way you're supposed to act. all these things and school and whatever, like the weight of the world feels like it's on you. And I'm sure it does for guys too, or any type of person, regardless of if you have a gender or not. Teenage years are really hard. And then it's basically showing how, even though this situation would be like the worst possible scenario you could think of, it still seemed better than being in their current reality of being a teenager in America.
Which is so sad. And I'm actually shocked that Rachel said, like, don't you want to get back to your real life? Like, I'm shocked she hasn't just been like hiding that she doesn't want to go back. Like, I'm shocked she just doesn't kind of shut up. And if people talk about it, she just doesn't say much about it. But that she's like actively being like, I want to get back. It's like, why do you want to get back? You don't have anything to get back to in this world that you want to have. So that was just surprising to me. Okay, can you shed light on Nora as a character? Does she have like autism or something? Because she sounds and like kind of acts like she might be like neuroatypical of some form, the way the actress is portraying her.
I can't remember exactly what they say when we get to the episode about Nora, but they do talk about how she's different than everyone else. And I think that it's just the fact that she's so smart. I'm pretty sure there's not anything else going on there, but I remember I mean, not just spoil something, we're the best at spoiling things, but she develops a friendship and relationship with this one person at a college. And he is different too. Like, they're just different. Like, it was 100-degree day and he was wearing a trench coat and he's like, I'm so sweaty right now, but it's my lucky trench coat or whatever it was. And they both like do things like that where they're like, oh, like everyone else would think that's weird, but we find it normal. It's just like how it is. And they're just very, very smart. And I think that that is how it is. I mean, if you watch someone who's very smart, their social interactions are different. I have a cousin who's very smart and he's not like Nora. He's not like Nora, but he's definitely not like Nora, if that makes sense. He probably is a little better at acting, I guess, how the average individual would work, which who can say what that even means, but he also acts a little atypical, I suppose. And it's solely because he's just very smart, in my opinion.
Yeah, because at first when I was watching the show, I was like, is she just like a bad actor? But then, like, as the show was going on and I was like learning about Nora and stuff, I mean, I only watched the one episode. So, like, it's not because I watched multiple and was learning about her. It's just from this episode, was I was starting to question if there was something there because I thought that was an interesting character choice too. And I think that is smart about, or that is true about really smart people, is that just act a little differently than what society deems to be like normal way of acting. And I like that they included her in there.
Yeah, it's very interesting to watch because everyone else is more involved in what's happening and it's like less observing. They're just acting maybe without thinking. Whereas Nora, you watch her watching and she's thinking about what's happening. But something else, speaking of watching, we find out that the girls are being watched. There's this woman and she seems to be in charge of this operation where there's things where you can see what's happening to the girls on the island. So you find out that they're being watched. This is kind of planned, obviously, that they're on this island. You see that she makes sure this bag gets delivered to the island. Shelby finds the bag. It's quote unquote the pilot's bag. And of course, it has everything they need in it. It has medicine that's going to help Martha with her sprained ankle. And there's other things in there. And they just believe that it's the pilot's bag, because why else or what else would you think? And we also, which might be a little confusing, see that this woman, I cannot remember her name, but the woman in charge is kind of sad about Jeanette, obviously, and that she's holding on to and like playing with these dogs. And the dogs are actually Jeanette's dogs. And I feel like if you want to find out more about that story, you need to watch this series. But that is a spicy little thing that happens. And so now this woman has Jeanette's dogs, and Jeanette is the one who died on the island. And what's going on there?
When I found out they were being watched, I was shocked. And the whole pilot's bag or whatever showing up with all the stuff they need reminded me of the Hunger Games when like you get sponsors and they like give you whatever you need and stuff like that. That's what it reminded me of. Like they sent in this stuff or whatever. But I was I was actually shocked they were being watched. I had no idea like what was going on because you saw the the woman giving a bag to this man who is like on a speedboat, and all you hear is like cut the engine 50 miles out. And honestly, I'm putting it together live as we're recording this that is obviously the bag that they found on the island. Like I didn't put it together when I watched it. I was just confused. Man with bag, what? I was like, I don't understand. But that's so crazy that it was like handcrafted and all this crap. But I don't know, like, where are these cameras? Like, what is going on? Like, how are they watching them through this? And like, this obviously has to be a little in the future because those camera batteries are really good. What's going on?
Yeah, and they do dive into that story more about where the cameras are and what's unfolding behind the scenes and why it's happening throughout this series. And I'm excited to see where season 2 takes it. But then also, when we flash back then to present day, Rachel's being interviewed, and we find out that Rachel is now missing a hand. And it will talk about that story, about how that happened, why that happened. But I thought that the interesting thing with that is that Rachel's talking about how a lot of times people who lose a limb or appendage, you get a phantom pain, I guess typically is usually what happens. You get phantom pains where your hand will hurt even though it's not there. But she said that she has this feeling, and what it is of Nora holding her hand. And she said forever she's going to have that feeling of Nora holding her hand, even though her hand's not there anymore, which I thought was kind of sweet.
It was, and they definitely allude to Nora like being dead. That's what, at the very beginning, Rachel's like, I'm not here to talk about her, but I'll talk about like my story or something. She says something like that at the very beginning. She talks about their story, but not what happened to Nora. And so I'm guessing something happened. She either went missing, she's dead, she's presumed dead, something happened with her. And that's why also it's her holding Nora's hand, is like I'm wondering if that's how she lost it, was doing something like that. So they allude to that, but we don't get a confirmation of it during this episode.
I truly believe that this is a series people should watch. There's lots of twists and turns, there's lots of storylines happening. I feel like it's a very hard show to be disinterested in because there is so much happening. But if you don't like a show that has lots of storylines, this wouldn't be one for you. I will put that out there. Or if you don't like watching people struggle in situations, this wouldn't be one for you. But I found it to be very interesting. And when I say each girl's story is so different, like it is so different. And obviously there's similarities because it can like bring them together. But the problems that they dive into in this show, I was like, whoa, I really love it.
Me too. I was not even tiny bit aware of what I should be expecting going into it. I just knew the title of the show. Basically, I didn't even know that they were on an island. I didn't know anything, but people were trying to compare it to Lost, or that it sounds like Lost, but it's so different from it, and it's actually like a new take on it or whatever. So it reminds me, it's like Lost meets The Society. I don't know if anyone's seen The Society on Netflix, but it's basically the premise is all of the seniors or whoever like go on a bus trip and then end up back at their town, but all of the adults are gone. Like there's no adults in the whole town, and you can't leave the town because like it all, because the society reminds me of Under the Dome, which you can't leave the dome. Like it just randomly traps this small town. There's a dome surrounding it.
That
So
reminds me
because
of Winona Earp because they can't leave the city limits.
all these shows, it just goes to prove that there are no original ideas, but that you can put an original take on an unoriginal idea. So it's like the society meets Lost. I feel like, the plane crash, the deserted island, the society, something's going on. Someone out there like has configured this. The format of them like interrogating them and then finding out their backstories and why they're here, and then just like the current what's happening on the island, I think is the smartest structure for them. They could have done it in so many different ways, but I think this is smart because you get the moments on the island, but it's not just moments on the island, which could get really boring or repetitive. And then you get their backstory, which is always interesting and helps with character development. But then you get like the present, which is like the future from the island, and you're like, what happened on the island so that she lost her hand? Like, what is going on? So I think they have put in all the work to keep you intrigued. You're like, well, now I have to freaking watch the whole episode or the whole season so that I know what happened in this one episode. But then as you watch the more episodes, you're definitely going to be like, well, now I need to watch this to find out what's happening here and why this is this way, So they were smart. The writers, the editors, the director, everybody here was a genius coming up with this premise. And it's on Amazon Prime. I don't know if we said it, but it's on Amazon Prime and it's wonderful.
Yeah, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's only written by one woman. I remember seeing an interview with her and a few of the cast members. And I can't remember how she said she came to the story, but she said that she had all these issues she wanted to talk about. So she was like, well, I should just have like each main person have a different story. But she also, I think, was saying that it's not common to have a show with so many leads or like stories, but she wanted to do it that way, which I like. And it's filmed in New Zealand, and here I am with me loving the scenery in the show or movie, and I think it's beautiful. I think it's really beautiful. I love it. But I think that it's supposed to be technically an island on the way to Hawaii, because I'm pretty sure they were flying to Hawaii. So they think they're in the middle of the Atlantic or something like that.
Which who knows, because if I was in a plane, I wouldn't know if I was going the wrong way.
Yeah.
I know it's a private jet or whatever, but like I'm paying attention to the route. I don't care.
Yeah, I can't say. I mean, I did just fly private recently. For my job. I'm not rich like that, people. But for my job, I flew private, and I can't say that I was paying attention to the route. And it was weird because our pilot, one of them, came back and was talking to us as we were flying. It was just like so chill and like eating a snack, and I was like, okay, dude. But yeah, how would you know? Like, what if those pilots weren't being reliable or something? How'd you know that they're actually taking you to where you want to go? And so how do they know that they were on the right course?
Some people look outside many times, but you don't know which direction you're going, especially like I don't know where they started, probably California, I'm guessing.
I can't remember where they started, which is interesting because they're all from different areas. Like we find out that Dot and Shelby are from Texas, and Leah and I think Fatten are from California, and Martha and Tony might also be from California. Maybe they're all from California except for Dot and Shelby. That could be the case. And then those two are just there for some reason, and maybe they fly out of LA, and Shelby has a southern accent.
I loved her. I thought she was very lovely. And she just seems like the nice person on the island right now. And I don't know if she just has a friendship with Martha or if they're trying to like show that they're like into each other. I don't know, because right, it was Tony was like, she's just gonna drop you when you get back or something like that. So I couldn't tell if they were like in a relationship or just friends at this time.
They are just friends. They will always remain just friends. But Shelby and someone do get in a relationship. I bet you could guess who it is. By the people you were just talking about, you couldn't tell by behavior.
Not right now.
Well, it's not Martha. You didn't think any of them stood out as like super gay?
Let me look up the cast.
Because I was like the instant I knew. That's truthfully why I watched the shows, because I knew that there was a gay relationship storyline in there. And I was like, ooh, yep, gonna watch that.
So you just like knew?
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it Tony?
Yeah.
The dot? I don't know.
It's Tony.
That's why I'm watching the rest of the show, because it's so good. But I don't have anything else personally to say. Is there anything you wanted to touch on quickly before we finished?
Nope, I think that's everything. I just think that everyone should give it a watch. This is one of the shows I think I would give a 10 out of 10 or 9 out of 10. Like, I really think it's worth a watch.
I think this is one of the best shows that we've watched on the podcast. Like, I loved Hannah and I love Dash and Lily. I can't say the same at all about Emily and Paris. And then Nat Schitt's Creek. And Queer Eye is lovely, but like on a different level. And so I think this is one of like the best scripted series that we've watched so far.
I'm glad you agree, and I was really hoping you were gonna like it. Funny that I picked out the show for Rachel and you picked out the show for Hannah.
I know, I think that's funny.
All right, do you want to hit us with the socials?
Absolutely. All right, so follow us on Instagram at youtalkingtome.podcast. We have lives there. We'll have another one coming up this month at the end, so keep an eye out for that. Follow us on Twitter at youtalkingtome11, because we're both number one. Go subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our videos, comment, hit the notification bell, please, because I think it's much more fun to watch a podcast, but that's just my personal preference. You can email us also at youtalkingtomepodcast@gmail.com. So if there are any questions you have there, if there's any comments, suggestions, like, we'll get to it. I mean, we don't record too much ahead of time, but we do record ahead of time. So sorry if we haven't gotten to suggestions soon enough, but we are doing our best. If there's anything else, Hannah?
I don't have anything else to add.
Awesome. With that, I'm Rachel.
I'm Hannah.
And this is the You Talking to Me podcast. Bye.